Today being June 21st, 2017, the Charlton Planning Board will open our meeting for tonight. We do have the public hearing at 7:15, but we have some bills and stuff to go over first. We have a bill from the American Planning Association for $95. We have a cell phone bill for $95.27. We have a bill for mileage of $20.87, and another bill for Alan for mileage for $64.94. We have some bills from Graves Engineering. We have one for $1,943.90, and we have another bill from Graves Engineering for $5,559.07. And we have another one from Graves Engineering for $942.30. Included with the readings is the invoices to justify the amount that we just read. Do you have a motion to accept the bills as read?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have some correspondence here. This is from the town administrator. That's the reappointment of the planning board alternate. Would be Alicia Dyson. She will be appointed for another year. We have a memo here from Joan Watkins. Doug Gardner from Pioneer Consulting has been hired by the Sewer and Water Commissioners to conduct a sewer rate study. Part of the process is to determine indirect costs based on the services of the department to provide to the sewer department. Doug will be here on Thursday to conduct brief interviewing with department head. We have a report here from Graves Engineering for 157 Worcester Road. There are pictures included. I'll pass this around for people to review. The Charlton Zoning Board of Appeals will hold at a meeting held on June 6, 2017, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted to approve a variance special permit submitted by the town of Charlton related to the property located at 85 Masonic Hill Road. Presently located on the premises is the Charlton Police Station. Petitioner seeks to replace the existing 132 AGL lateral tower with a 175 AGL multi-carry multi-pole tower. It was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Zoning Board of Appeals, at a meeting held on June 6, 2017, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted to approve a variance/special permit submitted by Dean Brewer related to property located at 128 Glen Echo Shore Road. Presently located on the premises is a single-family residence. The petitioner seeks to build an addition and deck. That was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's it for correspondence. Still have a few minutes, Alan, before the hearing.
Sure. Want to do the A&Rs?
Sure.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 4 A&Rs. We can either get to all of them before the hearing or 1 or 2, depending on the time. This first one came in from Brenda McGrath and her husband Todd. It's just a lot line adjustment between her house and her father's house. You can see that where the dotted line is, it went straight back, and because they use it and everything, it's no one's moving, no one's doing anything, but they just decided now as the years go by to make the adjustment. She said next year on the other side for her brother's house they'll do the same thing. So it's just getting it official where they use things in case in the future one of them does sell and move and don't want to do it at the last minute. I added a purpose clause because the surveyor hadn't put it on, that just reconfigured the side property line between lot 4R and 5R, pretty routine. She lives in 25 and her father lives in 29.
This is off of Lincoln Point Road?
Yes, and there's the locus on Ware on Lincoln Point on the east side, so it Ramsey.
Any questions from the board at this time? We good?
No.
Do I have a motion to accept the A&R plan as viewed?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The magic markers.
Yep, there, plenty of there.
Have Jane date that later, right?
Yeah, she'll take it from there. She'll be back on Monday. You notice he put for Baker Pond AKA Gore Pond?
Yeah.
Never heard that before, have you?
You think I think of this, because it doesn't, does it?
Could be.
Yeah.
Shared by
Maybe
two
it's
towns.
where it is.
Yeah, might be it.
That's time for one more.
Do one more. This one's pretty quick and simple too. Rick Parra submitted this for, remember Dr. Karen Robinson? And her husband Chris. And just to show you a quick sketch of what you signed back in 2015. We signed an A&R in 2015 that out of the 80 plus acres, they created this house lot. And if you look at the sketch, the remaining 79 acres were 5 different parcels and they weren't changing anything. But now they're just doing some family estate planning purposes and they're combining through this A&R the 5 large parcels into one large lot R, 74.94 acres. And that way they'll deal with it all as one large parcel as time goes by. So it's just a combining the 5 into one. It doesn't affect number 75 at all. They're not changing anything with the lot lines or the frontage. Plenty of frontage, no problem, and obviously plenty of acreage to meet everything.
Was it like 5 separate pieces before?
Yeah, it was 5 separate. If you look at that dotted one, the map with the dotted line, you'll see that the 5 dotted lines on the upper left locus, those
Oh,
5,
okay.
yeah. Those 5 total the 79, and now they'll put it in one parcel. And that way someday when they do something with it, it's just one parcel and working with the realtor.
Make a motion we approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Question?
Yeah.
We can do the other 2 later. Oh, this was that $60 ad fee check that you submitted, but we don't need it. Your application fee covered the legal ad.
Oh.
Just take that back.
Oh, okay.
I'll take that.
Oh, sure.
I found that over there too. Thanks.
Notice of a public hearing, Town Planning Board. In accordance with section 200-7.1 and 200-7.2 of the Charlton zoning bylaw, the Charlton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, June 21st, 2017, at 7:15 p.m. in the Planning Board office of the George C. McKinstry Building at 37 Main Street, Charlton, Mass. On the site plan application of Virgilio Solar, 1115 Waterford Street, Lowell, Mass. 01851, requesting approval for a proposed commercial ground-mounted solar array and associated utilities connecting facilities. The proposal consists of an approximately 1.9 megawatt field array on approximately 8 acre property owned by Gunther LLC, located southwestern off of Hornsted Road. Assessor map 40, block B, parcel 45.2. Said property is zoned agricultural A. Copy of the site plan applications are available for inspection at the planning board office of the town clerk's office during regular business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. Alan, I'm going to let you start us off.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
then
Chairman.
we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll state for the planning board what I state before each site plan review. Some people in the room are very familiar with it, but most people aren't. Under Massachusetts state zoning and the Charlton local zoning bylaw, administrative site plan review is a site design review. If there were buildings involved, the planning board does not get involved in the inside of the buildings. Also, the planning board is not determining legally whether or not this is allowed. Administrative site plan land uses are allowed. It's just prior to receiving a building permit, it requires the planning board review for several design issues, the major ones being, and I'm not limiting to that because there are a few others, stormwater management and drainage, driveway design and access, parking, fencing if fencing is involved in a project, landscaping and lighting if it's involved. The planning board also has an engineering consultant. His name is Mike Andrade. He's vice president of Graves Engineering in Worcester. And after the presentation part, I'll provide the board and summarize our preliminary review from our engineer, Mr. Andrade, and he reviews the project through the whole public hearing process. Last, I'll just state for the record, tonight is just the opening session. This is not a one-night review. All projects of anything but the smallest of size and scope require more than one evening, and the chairman and the board will determine at the end of the hearing session tonight the continuance to a future date. So that said, Mr. Albrecht, if you could introduce yourself and the way the board handles their first night of hearings, if you could give roughly a general presentation of 5 minutes or so, and then the board, as the hearing goes on, will get into more detailed information with you. But an initial presentation overview for the board and the public. The board has a copy right here of the plan too.
Okay,
So.
wonderful. Well, thank you, Alan. Mr. Chairman and members of the Charlton Planning Board, my name is David Albrecht. I'm a professional engineer with Borrego Solar. With me tonight is John DuPont. He's our technical lead from a battery storage end of things. It's a new component of our company. And I think I've met all of you before for the 29 Oxford Road solar project. You might recall that we were before you on behalf of National Grid. That was a project that we had won the right to design, permit, and construct for them. This is another phase of their RFP process. This is phase 3. This is one of the projects that we won as part of that RFP, and we're going through the process again with you guys. A little history on this particular site. This is owned by Gunther LLC, Roy Gunther. I don't know how many members of this board were around when Mr. Gunther had received approval for a residential subdivision on about 125 acre site. I want to say it was 68 lots or so, with a through road that went through and connected to Horn Homestead. Mr. Gunter has agreed with ourselves to sort of lop off, I think it was phases 4 and 5.
If you could turn for 1 minute to the color-coded one on the board of the approved subdivision, just in general, put your hand of what will be rescinded as a house lot subdivision section for your project.
Everything over here. Everything to the east or to the right of where my hand is.
Thank you.
So I don't know how many lots that is, but there's lots up in here. There's access, through access here, connected to Horn Homestead. This is being rescinded. Prior to us receiving our approval, obviously that part of the subdivision plan needs to be rescinded, and Mr. Gunter's, their engineers, Burton Engineering, will be submitting that set of plans and everything to this board for approval. Not maybe the next meeting, but the meeting following that. We have to be sort of behind them. So this is our first presentation. They have to make a presentation and get approved before we can approve. So I'll just take those few minutes. What I have, I'll talk a little bit about existing conditions, and then I'll generally talk about the project. I know you've seen a lot of solar projects in this town, and this particular board has seen those. This is not a lot different than that, really. From 5,000 feet, it doesn't look a whole lot different. This is an aerial photograph from Google. North is straight up. Right in this location is Horn Homestead Road. It ends, and it's a dead end road from coming south off of Route 20. Route 20 is up here. These black lines are just the outline of part of Mr. Gunter's property. We don't show the whole thing on this particular plan. And then just generally where the project will be located. This is just sort of the fence line in the light blue. And this one in Richardson Corner Road is way over here to the east. And I'll show you some wetlands and so on. It's an aerial photograph. So this is about the same scale. North is always going to be up on our plans. Horn Homestead Road ends right here, and their frontage on Horn Homestead is right here. There's this portion of land that sticks out here. There's quite a bit of relief, topographic relief on the project. I think it's about elevation 790, sort of in the backyard of this single-family home here, down to about 100 feet lower, just in the range of where our project is. It goes even further down the hill into these wetlands. Those wetlands you see here are highlighted in green, and the buffer zone to BBW is the blue line. There's parts of the site that are quite steep. It's almost entirely wooded. This is an open field. There's a little bit of an open field here to the far west. There's a pond to the very far west, and there's some clearing in an area here. There's also many stone walls, and there's a very roughly kind of a cart path that runs right along the northerly portion of the property. That would be located on this plan, right about here. I've not followed it off the site, but it's basically where we're going to create our driveway. This is our tree clearing plan. Inside the fence, if you might recall, we clear the trees and remove the stumps. And outside the fence, where we need to clear trees for shade and for construction purposes, we leave the stumps in place and they're allowed to regenerate over time. So let me go back to the colored version of this. So as the chairman read, it's just shy of a 2 megawatt project. It is the inside the fence, which you see here in red, we make it pop pretty well, is just about 8 acres inside the fence. That's the clearing and grubbing area as well. There is the fence is, again, we're doing this for National Grid, and they have a requirement for their fences. It's a little different than most. It's an 8-foot tall fence, no barbed wire, and it's mini mesh is what's used. which is different than the 2.5 or 2.25 inch standard chain link fence, which does allow people to climb up. I'm sure all of us have climbed up a chain link fence in our life. Mini mesh does not allow you to do that. So it's about safety. So that's the fence. The access point, I'll show that on this particular plan. Again, here's Horn Homestead Road, the frontage. There's currently a broken down access gate, and there's a little bit of a stone wall there. So we'll be coming straight in there with our gravel driveway. It's 16 foot wide, gravel driveway. Comes around the corner, hugs this area here of this meadow. There's a stone wall through here, of which we'll have to remove some. It comes into the site, and then really it just runs right over the existing dirt, gravel, rock cart path that runs along the northerly portion of the property. So I'm going to point to where this is on this plan. That's right here. That's that bend. So what you see in gray is the road. We've passed this through the fire chief, and he hasn't had any comments regarding that. We talked about Knox boxes and those types of things. At that entrance off of Horn Homestead Road, we will have a forestry gate with a Knox box. That's not a chain link fence. It's the kind you see at the end of the state parks and so on. That'd be a nice, probably green or brown fence or gate. The access, vehicular access to the system itself is right here. This is going to be an 8 foot tall mini mesh double leaf gate, and that leads into the site here. Let me talk a little bit about the modules and the racking. The racking we're going to be using is TerraSmart, which is exactly the same racking, except a new version of it that we did on Oxford Road. It's the augered screws into the ground. Each rack has 4 screws, and then you build a rack on top of that, and then the modules are placed on top of that. So this is a 4x type rack, which means there's 4 high, and they're in landscape. So the tallest these get is about 8 foot tall in fact, and it's 30-inch leading edge height, which is I think almost exactly the same as what we had on Oxford Road. So you'll notice that the spacing of these rows is kind of all over the place, and that's due to the fact of the topography. It's not a flat, plain site. It kind of, it does drop from here to here, but the grades are different all throughout. So where we have slopes that might be actually a little bit more south-facing or a little less north-facing, a little less north-facing than south-facing, they need to be a little bit farther apart than those that are almost all south-facing. So that's why these are closer together versus these. It's not because we don't know how to draw boxes, it's strictly because of the 3D modeling. The tree clearing line is what you see here. This down here, this light grayish blue, that's impact we have to the 100-foot buffer zone that we filed a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. In this area right here, this is where all of the conduits and cables from the system all come to. It's all underground in electrical trenches. It all comes together. There's just for instance, there's a transformer, there's switchgear, there's our data acquisition system. That's how we monitor it remotely. There's other equipment as well. But I think most importantly for this board, because you've seen that before, we are National Grid in our RFP has asked for energy storage. So we've provided 2 megawatt hours. That's correct, John, right? 2 megawatt hours of storage. So those are these sort of 4 boxes right in this location, and they'll provide electricity and energy during off-peak hours, or certainly when there's no sun. It's all up to National Grid on how they'll operate that. Again, those are right here at the end of the road. This road, all the roads meet fire chief's requirements. This might look a little different than that plan. If you look at that particular plan, there's kind of a big chunk out of the south part of it, right here. There's this right here. we took that out and actually were able to pull up the system a little bit further, minimize tree clearing. We took about 1,000 feet of impact out of the buffer zone as well. It went a little further that way, but it's not as deep a section right here. We meet all the setbacks by quite a bit. The closest sensitive receptor, which would be a residence in this particular case, is just shy of 400 feet away, and that's the residence right here. Our system is down here, 400 feet. There's a field, and then there's some very large trees along here that will be maintained. There is also, Alan mentioned that Graves Engineering will do a review of the stormwater, and then so they have reviewed and commented on our stormwater management system. We have swales, ditches along one side of the road. We have a culvert here that leads to a very small detention basin, and we have at the other end of the road, we have a small culvert that takes water from one side of the road and just discharges it on the other side. So last but not least is how does this all get interconnected into the grid? As I mentioned, everything is underground inside the system fence. It comes outside of the fence, and it'll be underground to a point where it'll go up a riser pole, and then there'll be a number of poles located right here along the road. So it's underground all the way to a point here. There's a series of poles. Some are customer poles, which in this case it's National Grid. So there's actually fewer poles here than normally if this were to be an investor who were to buy the system and own the system. There would be, both the utility would have some poles and the customer might require their own poles they normally do. So there could be as many as 2 or 3 more poles if it were a privately owned system. I don't know if I mentioned it, but the system, the area will be leased from the landowner. It's not a purchase. It's all being leased for a period of time with a couple of extensions beyond that. As far as grading and drainage, I mentioned drainage. As far as grading goes, there are some areas where, again, it's fairly steep, and we needed to grade, sort of shave it here and there to make sure we met we were less than the maximum that's allowed for the racking in an east-west direction. And we've provided silt fence, we've provided mulch tubes according to some requests made by Graves Engineering and our own engineers. And there's details with that particular set. I can tell you that the set you're looking at now is evolving into the final set. We hope that we'll be able to respond back to Graves Engineering and to the board by the end of this week. So any comments that we discussed tonight, any questions that come up from the audience with regards to this, we'll do our best to get all those implemented into the plans prior to making that submission.
At this time, we're going to allow the board members to question and get some answers, and then after that, we'll open it up to the public. Right. Just have a question in regards to Wanstead Road. When you're coming up, can you go back to the front color one?
The aerial?
Yeah. So, going up Wanstead Road, I'm trying to visualize where the driveway is going to enter onto that.
It is difficult to see. There is, I think I actually have a picture of that location on my phone, but it's there's an old wooden farm gate that's sort of tipped over. It's still kind of across the entrance, but that's the location.
For the next session of the hearing, could you bring a large visual to show everybody?
Sure. Yeah, we can actually, show. We can actually put maybe even in the photograph before we take it, we can string maybe some colored tape across where the legal frontage is, so you can see how far it goes.
So going up Homestead Road, you're gonna be entering on the right side or the left side?
We'll be coming up and we'll be turning left.
Okay.
There's a really, really big tree,
Yep.
right? Actually, I think it's probably on the frontage, at each end of the frontage. That's my recollection.
Nope.
I'll let Alan read the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. We have two comments, staff review. A very brief June 18th letter from the building commissioner just stating that he'll provide a comment and a recommendation on anything specific at a future hearing date because he would really need to have the upcoming submittal from Burton Engineering that's reducing the size of the subdivision to look at both at the same time. So he's just informing the board that this evening he's not offering that, but he's obviously assuming that we're continuing beyond tonight, and we'll get that from him at a future session. Secondly, just to summarize the Graves report that you received in your packet, Michael Andrade reviewed it on June 14th, and it's not as long as most of them. It's 34 comments or items, which, as you know, often we can have up to 100 of them, because since you went through the Oxford Road one, you know what's required, and so there's less items that he's either asking for more information or suggesting to make a revision to the first submittal version. Most of them, as you can see, from item 10 on, are about stormwater management. And just to explain to folks who haven't been through this before, under Massachusetts state law and even federal EPA law, when someone designs a project like this, they have to put in stormwater management so the runoff rate at undeveloped as it is now does not accelerate, and the new development doesn't exceed that. That's why there's a detention basin. That's why there's the various stormwater management infrastructure elements in it. And Michael is recommending either more information or suggesting some changes here and there. Also, and Paul and I were talking about this yesterday, soils and test pits. It's mandatory that they do test pits and that Graves Engineering inspect them, and that way they confirm NRCS soil service data for the hydrology calculations. So from 10 on to 10 on to 34, it's all related to stormwater drainage. Items 1 through 9 are pointing out a few things about standard information on different sheets that he's either asking a question or suggesting that it be added on it. And then you notice the discrepancy. You mentioned in the presentation, or Mr. Albrecht did, that the fence is 8 feet high. In a couple locations it refers to it as 6 feet, so please adjust that accordingly. So for the first cut of the application, it's basically drainage review. And once we receive your revision from it, Michael can do the next round of reviews. Those are the reviews we've received. As you know, we distribute it to other boards, departments, commissions, but building commissioner and engineering are the only ones, and that's routine for this type of cycling.
Actually, Mr. Chair, item 28 talks about sound study or sound implications from the battery system.
Good point. If I can go over that briefly, and thank you, Pete, for bringing it up. They're proposing a 6-foot-high solid sound attenuation vinyl fence around those batteries because it does have a slight sound to it. Michael Andrade has told me very clearly that he doesn't recommend we have a noise consultant review it because it's 0 at the edge of the array. That sound attenuation fence dampers it down, so by the time you get north, south, east, west, since it's in the center of the array, you don't get anything off the site.
Okay.
It's off the 8-acre clearing part of the site, and obviously beyond that point, there's nothing either. I asked him again today just to confirm that, and he said, no, if I felt we needed to bring in HMMH as a sub-consultant for something, we certainly would review it. But if it hits 0 by the time we get to the edge of the 8-acre clearing, it works. So that's it. I think what we should do, though, when it's in the field, we should do a testing for construction. But in terms of analyzing it for the design, there's no reason to. But prior to issuance of a certificate of operation, we'd do a standard noise testing at that location to confirm that it is that way. Otherwise, we'd have to come back to the board and damper down if it exceeded anything DEP or EPA. But Michael's been our engineer for a long time, and he says it's definitely at 0 when we get beyond the 8 acres.
Yeah, the only thing I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, is that certificate of completion is typically required prior to turning it on, so you can't turn it on.
They can
So
run
something-
computer modeling related to it. I mean,
So
we've been through this on
work it
several
out.
projects.
If that ends up as a condition, which would be acceptable to us, to have some testing done post construction and it's operating, we want to operate it at, the batteries will be at full. We just then need to figure out, give us some time to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, we can work with you on that for our consultant. Sure.
Any other questions?
No.
At this time, we're gonna open it up to the public. If you'd state your name and your address, please, for the record, as if you have a question. The gentleman in the back. Yes.
Greg Paris, 13 Horn Homestead. A couple questions. I'll start with the poles that will deliver the power out. Will be running down Horn Homestead. Will additional poles to what is already in place be required?
I don't believe that there's, the poles that are there may be replaced, but that's up to National Grid. But the power does get interconnected onto Route 20. There's no three-phase at the end of one homestead. So poles, if they're tall enough, can be utilized to put new cabling out to Route 20. Otherwise, they would take out the old poles, put in new poles. They would be tall enough. They put them in someplace.
Sure. Right.
Okay, thank you. This will involve energy storage, and I've heard it said that that will be batteries.
Correct?
Okay. One of the things that I'm asking about is fire protection. If the batteries were to have any problem and a fire were to happen, what sort of fire fighting options are available on Horn Homestead, or will some additional need to be added?
We have, I'll have John step in a second, and I'll just generally speak to that. It's a lithium ion type system, so it's not like a battery you have in your car when it's liquid. It is, they're fully enclosed. There's a fire suppression system with each one that's installed. And the only question I want John to answer is, what is the fire suppression? We supplied that to the fire department. They asked that question about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've supplied them that information. I don't know what
It's a Novak 1230. It's like a halon gas fire suppression within the enclosed battery container, but Novak is used because it has low global warming potential as a replacement for halon. As far as the firefighting measures, should a fire penetrate that container, there are no special firefighting techniques required. Water is the way to cool a lithium-ion fire, and it's a piece of electrical equipment. So the fire department would treat it like a transformer in that situation.
If water is required for such fire, is there a hydrant anywhere on Horn Homestead? I'm not aware of that.
One point, even though you've spoken to the fire department, Brian Ciccarelli had told me that they're also withholding their review comments to the planning board till they get the other piece from Burton Engineering for the subdivision. So we will directly have reviews from the fire department, and any questions that come up, we can pass on to them to look at and answer back for that review.
Right, to that point, and I apologize for not noting this on the plan. We just got it today. We had many files from Burton Engineering. What you see highlighted here in yellow, that's the proposed new cul-de-sac. You know, there's a cul-de-sac way over here. The new one is right in this location, and that's what you see in yellow. Their CAD file, we imported it, and that's where it'll be, and we showed how we would connect to that cul-de-sac at such time that it's constructed. We put a turnaround for the fire department here, and this will be part of the submission. It will go to the fire department for their final review.
Any other Mr. Rogers for second.
Paul Rogers, Richardson's Corner Road, 54. I'm the one that's downhill from part of it where you see the greenhouses.
Okay.
Just to focus for a few minutes, I know you don't have the total package yet, but what percentage of the site is below the level of the retention pond?
How much of the site is below this?
Yeah,
That's a really good
it's
question.
downhill from you. You've
Um,
got a climb there of what, 40 feet, 60 feet?
So that is located right in this location. It's at about elevation 750, and you're Daniel Rogers. This must be
Yeah.
right here. So your property ranges from either. Let's see if that's follow these contours. 670 is here, so that's 180 feet lower.
Yeah,
To 180, 190, 200, 210 feet lower. So this is 210 feet of drop of elevation change from here and 180 from here.
I
That's
think,
significant.
I think what Mr. Rogers is trying to get at is he wants to make sure that the clearing is going to go to the retention pond. If there's some way of really making that clear to
The
us.
clearing,
The land clearing, I know he's looking to make sure that everything is going to the retention pond.
everything that is required to go to it to keep the post-development runoff rate below the pre. It doesn't have to be at the very
But can you briefly
bottom of the
describe
site.
how you're designing the site engineering-wise to assure that it goes into the pond? That's what he's looking for,
Oh,
that type
okay.
of information.
So the way that works is, so the pond is right here. Our site is down here.
yeah,
So there's a pre-development plan that we look at to see how the water runs currently down the site. And there's different watershed areas and there's different points where we analyze the pre-development runoff rate. They call design points. We figure out what the pre-development is. And then when we place the project on there, we change certain parameters. Obviously, it's going from trees to trees with stumps, going from trees to a meadow. There's concrete pads. There's also the gravel driveway, and those things increase the runoff because it's not trees and it's, we're paving some things like the concrete pads. So in this case, because of all the water is running this way,
yeah.
and we're basically putting a road in the way, blocking the water from running. We're creating a ditch along this entire side, and this whole part of the site that's actually not even on our site, but it's up gradient, it's above us. That water is hitting the road on our property, going into a ditch, and in this location, it's just going into a little culvert, crossing the culvert, and discharging to continue down. We're not damming it up or anything, we're allowing it to go somewhere. And then there's an area here, and a little area here that goes into here, and instead of just discharging it, because it's a fair amount of water, we have to detain it. And that offsets the overall increase in runoff from the proposed project. So this has, and then obviously when the water comes out of this detention basin, because it's not retaining it, it's only detaining it, it holds it, and there's a smaller pipe that outlets from the detention basin that throttles how much water can leave it.
Yeah.
And that allows the pond to fill up. So that water comes out, and again, just like this culvert here, it comes out and it discharges down the hill in exactly the same place. It all ends up in the same place it used to, but there's less of it.
Less of it, okay.
There's
You
the
have
peak.
8 acres, and an inch of stormwater. You've got 27,000 gallons per acre. So rough figuring, 200,000 gallons of water. What's your retention on.
Well, it's not quite as simple as you said it was.
No, no.
It's there's time of concentration. There's the route we have the water taking in the ditches versus across land. So those actually slow things down a bit. So it's not just you know, an inch of water over a certain area and then multiplying that by area. This has a base that's 15 feet wide by 80 feet long, and it has 3-to-1 side slopes. So you know that's sort of the tub that we're creating. I don't know off the top of my head just how much volume it has. We don't talk gallons. We talk cubic feet of water.
Yeah.
But it's probably on the order of 50,000 to 60,000 cubic feet of water,
Yeah.
which times 7.48 gallons per cubic foot. That gives you 350 to 400,000 gallons of water. Yeah.
Yeah. The ditches, they riprap, they lined, or is it?
They're the bottom of the ditches are riprap. The sides are grass. So what we do, and we did this on Oxford Road, is we hydroseeded the sides of the ditch, and with erosion control fabric over it, jute mesh, so that it's allowed to decompose over a couple of years, so it holds the slope of the ditch in. The ditch gets to be 1.5 to 2 feet deep in a few places. That's primarily where the culverts are, so that the culvert can go under the road and still provide enough cover over the pipe that we can drive over it.
Thank you.
There was a gentleman in the back.
My name is Bob Kuchar. I live at 36 Horn Homestead Road. I'm the one at the end of the road. And I have several questions. I have animals that are going to be within 75, 100 feet from these batteries. And so can you explain to me how the noise from the battery pack stops at the 8 acre?
Sure.
Because, they obviously can hear a lot better than us. I have 14 beef cows out there.
Okay. So this is the common property line between
There's a wall
Gunter's
there.
and yourself.
That wall.
There's actually places where you can stand on that cart path I mentioned, and you can't even see your house. It's really weird how it drops down and then it comes back up. I couldn't tell you exactly where that is, although I think it's probably right.
It runs probably
It's
right
probably
along
right
that
in
whole route.
probably right in here.
Mhm.
These I think they're 6 feet high.
They're 8 feet high.
They're 8 feet high, so actually we need to
We need
increase
to
the
correct
height
that
of
because
our
it says
solid
6, if you're
fence.
going 8, we need
Right.
that on the
We'd have an 8-foot high solid vinyl fence, which is you can't put in a fence with slats because noise goes through the woods. You can't muffle sound with trees. So we're putting a solid fence in. The bottom of the fence will be buried into the ground about 3 inches, so it's not going to sound won't be able to go under the fence. And we'll right now it's just across the sort of the front. It goes about 10 feet beyond the extents of the batteries on each side. It doesn't wrap around it.
And it stops right there.
It stops right there. So a couple things about noise, and Alan mentioned it, and Michael Andre from Graves Engineering sort of, he confirmed our findings, which is that it makes noise. There's background noise. You're in what noise consultants would call a rural, what do they call it? Rural suburb or something, and there's a sort of a baseline ambient noise level about 35 dBs at night. So we have a nighttime and we have a daytime. And if we put the batteries there and they're operating, noise travels and it decreases exponentially the farther away you get. It's not prorated. It drops a lot quickly. So at a meter away, it might be 80 decibels. But by the time it gets to the property line, it's probably on the order of 50. And I'm talking at about 50 right now. By the time it gets to your house, and that's where we measured that, and we put that actually in our cover letter, it's still a little higher than the 35, and that's why we put the fence there. So the fence will drop it. It doesn't drop it to zero. Noise is never zero, but there's no increase from the ambient. So what you're hearing now, you would hear no more when the batteries are operating.
It's constant though.
No, the batteries don't operate constantly.
Yeah, if I can add to that. So the two sources of noise from the batteries, the charging and discharging of batteries doesn't make any noise.
Okay.
If you think about your phone, it has a lithium-ion battery and it doesn't make noise when it's charging. What does make noise is the cooling system associated with that, so to keep the batteries within the right temperature range. So that runs when the batteries are operating and it's hot outside. And so the batteries are typically going to be operating during the day and the early evening hours, and will very rarely be operating at night. There's no reason for National Grid to be using them in that way. The other source of noise in the batteries is a transformer. It's an electrical device within the power conversion system, which is like a solar inverter, and that's similar to the noise that comes from a transformer on a utility pole.
Have you had experience around animals?
With solar, yes, not with energy batteries.
Well, we have sheep on Horn Homestead. We have horses, we have cows. And they all hear a lot better than us. And we're introducing a noise that hasn't been there. Why don't we get a sound study?
I will add one thing, that while animals are more sensitive, obviously, and hear things, the DBA has to be there for them to hear, and that's important. So the drop-off, it takes it down to where they're not hearing anything beyond the ambient. They're not going to react because of the noise level they're hearing, even though it's more sensitive than what we hear, is still going to be the same thing that they're hearing now in terms of level. And that's how this works in terms of engineering. We will test it in the field to make sure it's built the way it's being designed. I can always talk to our engineer for another comment, but I know he's going to say the same thing, that it meets all requirements of state and federal, which is all we can do on noise. And since by the time you get to the location of yourself and anyone else that you have the current level right now, it's still the same level. So that won't change the animal's reaction in terms of discomfort or comfort or anything like that.
So the tree blocking will help, obviously. That's
Very,
very,
probably nothing. Trees don't stop noise.
They don't stop
They
noise.
just don't. No, it's not solid. You look into a forest and you go, wow, it looks pretty solid, but I live next door to a nationally recognized noise expert, and he told me many 20 years ago, like, don't ever say that, because it doesn't work. And don't try to tell somebody, oh yeah, you got lots of trees, that works. I'm like, so I don't do that.
The other question I have is the poles going into the field. Obviously, I'm looking right at, that is my view up to the hillside. Is there any way that they can go underground till it hits the road?
Well, we can talk. There are ways to do that.
Because you're bringing it most of the way, and then you're sticking it up on poles to get to the street, right?
Right. The only other way to do that is we have pad-mounted equipment, and so then what you'll see, I mean, it'll be lower, but they are large concrete pads with a big piece of equipment on it. So if you think about a transformer in a big office building, you know, the big green boxes, it's like that but bigger. And the whole thing would have an 8-foot high fence all the way around.
But it still has to be above ground. I mean, I know the
You
city of
visited it.
Boston, they put them under the streets.
Right.
You know,
We know
but
what
I'm
happens. We
sure
know what happens
there's
with
a-
those sometimes.
Yeah.
But no, they cannot all entirely be underground. They have to be up above ground in a locked fenced area, and because National Grid wants 8-foot high fences, that they'll all have 8-foot security fences around.
I do have one comment for the gentleman in the back.
Yep.
The report that was submitted already is only for a 6-foot fence. So I'm sure our analyzer is going to adjust that to the 8-foot fence. And we'll see what those results come back at, what he thinks it'll be. It should be better than the 6-foot fence.
So this roadway is gonna run right along my property line.
It's gonna run along that common property
Right.
line to the north. I mean, there's kind of an old road there.
It's the old Bay path or something down
Yeah.
there.
Right.
There's two stone walls, one to the, I guess, the south. There's
There's
two, and then
there's
there's
one
a,
that's near the common property
Right.
line with your property,
Right.
and there's sort of, I think there's pieces of one
Mhm.
to the north, and we'll be going right between the two.
Do we have any other comments from the public? at this
no,
time?
that won't be fenced.
Yes,
That's the
Delaney,
tree.
fine.
My name is Joanne Williamson. I also live at 13 Warren Homestead Road. I was wondering what kind of, assuming that the whole permitting process, approval process goes smoothly, what kind of time frame are you looking at to start construction?
We're looking to start sometime later this year. I would suggest
Fall.
fall.
So, the construction equipment is going to access the site via Horn Homestead Road?
Yes,
You have driven on Horn Homestead Road.
we have. Our construction project manager she's actually been out there quite a few times. She's getting a good read on what's sort of appropriate.
It's narrow and it's in, I wouldn't say complete disrepair, but it's not quite 2 lanes in some places.
Mhm.
And in fact, I've already been impacted personally by a big piece of construction equipment that apparently went up there to do some cores or something
That was our
And-
geotechnical engineer.
and blocked the road
Oh.
on the way back down. So I'm wondering what you have in your plans for minimizing the impact of the construction on the people who live on Horn Homestead Road.
We would have, for this particular project, we obviously have trucks that would be bringing, taking the logs out. They'd be smaller vehicles, it's not gonna be a tandem type trailer with, because they can't make the turn to get in or out, in the driveway. So those will be single trailers. We will have, a flatbed that'll bring in, something to do the grading. There will be a backhoe that'll come in on a flatbed as well that will do the trenching for the electrical. You'll have dump trucks that will need to come in, build the road, and maybe a small bulldozer. I
Are you
wouldn't-
creating a staging area on site to handle all that equipment, so
Yes.
it's not gonna be on the road?
Yes, yeah, we won't be parking on the road. We won't be parking. We'll be, actually, there's a location right here, and there's a location right here, where we'll, at the end of the day, there'll be equipment that will be sitting there. And once those, like, the road is constructed, which should take 2 weeks, once the grading of the site is done, and that I'll include the tree clearing and the stumping. That's probably about a month as well, and those are happening concurrently. The road's gonna get built so they can get the trucks in to do the tree clearing. So if we said it's the whole process of the larger equipment is 6 to 8 weeks. The rest of it is, there'll be semi-trailer trucks dropping off panels and racking. That takes we drop that all off in a period of 2 weeks. And then it's just pickups and electricians.
And how much, obviously somehow you're gonna have to tie into the electrical system. How much disruption of our electrical service are we gonna have to expect
That's up
because
to
of your work?
that's up to the National Grid. We will construct the project, and then, because we're building it for National Grid, it's gonna be up to them to decide when they are going to do any we pay them to construct the improvements, we don't do any of those kinds of improvements. So if they have to come in and put new poles, take the old poles out, they do that in such a way that your service is not disrupted. That's, that's not, they don't want to disrupt anybody's service. And if it's just the poles that are there now, are gonna be utilized, they'll just be hanging new cables at the top. So there'll be bucket trucks and so on, to take it out to Route 20.
And if your construction equipment damages the road, are you guys gonna repair it?
That'll be up to this board if we can do
Yeah, the highway department.
we can do what's called a pre-construction survey of the road, and then we can do a post-construction, and then we can, we have agreed in the past to repair a road.
we're not gonna make it brand new.
Obviously.
I don't think you wanna make, trust me, I don't think you wanna make it brand new, because people fly down that road.
No, then.
I live on the road, and it's very similar, and we don't like, it's pretty beat up, we don't want it to be brand new.
All right, we're gonna be continuing the public hearing for another night. Got a lot of good feedback from the public. We will make sure that the fire department does get some comments on what's gonna happen if there's a situation with the batteries. We're gonna make sure that the drainage that Mr. Rogers and them had will be a little more clearer to us at our next meeting. And you know, the fence for the sound, you know, we're gonna get that reanalyzed. And a good point was to bring up with the highway department. We will make sure that we get some comments from Jerry, the highway superintendent, to review the road prior to construction, so that if anything happens to the road during construction, Jerry's aware of it. These will be comments that we're gonna have over the next couple hearings. Not exactly sure, we're gonna move this to the June.
July 12th. I'll make a motion, we continue the hearing to July 12th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So again, on July 12th, we'll have another hearing, and public's invited, and maybe some of these questions you guys have tonight, we'll have a little better answer for you. Okay? Appreciate everybody coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you.
I presume around the same time, 7:15?
You check with Jane during the week.
Okay.
She'll make up the agenda.
Wonderful.
All right.
I have a question, guys. They dropped off an air
The
compressor
public
last week.
thanks the board
At the
as
end of
well
the road, and we
as
had
the
police knock on
engineer
the door and
for the clear
wanting to
presentation.
approve only
Thank
the
you
air
all.
compressor.
Hopefully we get better answers to your drainage questions
have no
and
idea.
batteries.
I will find out about that. I don't know.
But I would appreciate not getting any more labor than this is
I-
really.
Okay. No,
We wish.
Just
You know, if you need to knock things,
There's no
look,
detention.
leave them off during the day.
Project is down gradient.
Nice presentation.
Oh, thank you very much.
Right, but
I hope I
you're not
answered your question,
creating
but I'll have a larger
impervious
scale
surface,
drawing to
you're
show you
just-
a little
So
bit
you don't
better,
have to
kind of
change
where
it,
the
so
work.
it's still natural, there's still,
Okay.
it's still grass, there's still.
Also, we'll talk about vegetation management.
Okay.
It's gonna be there.
I can see Mr. Rogers' concern is moving down the hill.
Absolutely.
200 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a zip line.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm fun with my back this evening. I
That's
think
okay.
I'm gonna stand more than sit the rest of the meeting.
We adjourned the public hearing to July 12th.
Sure.
And at that time, Jane can inform him what time they'll be on the agenda. Made a comment about 4 good comments coming from the public. The fire department with the batteries, what input from them. The drainage, as far as do we need more detention ponds or anything.
Sure.
The fence for the noise, which will be now analyzed at 8 feet instead of 6. And we want to get some good feedback from Jerry on the highway department. The present road is pretty beaten up, and what will happen during construction?
That's a good question, because when it was a subdivision and under the current approval, for the subdivision traffic impact, they're required to do some improvements to Horn Homestead. Is that still necessary for this element too? That's a good question. And even during construction, are there certain things that have to be done to take care of the construction equipment not damaging the road and all? That's a good point. We should give Jerry that chance to review it. He was very involved in the upgrade that's proposed. I would assume that Frank Bashiri from Burton Engineering will be asking you in the revision for the definitive to drop that upgrade requirement, since the subdivision won't be accessing it. It will just be emergency access only through an emergency gate through this for police, fire, EMT. But maybe the board will feel, and maybe your engineer and maybe Jerry will feel, that we still need to have some improvements to Horn Homestead. It could
Well,
be.
it shouldn't be left any worse than what it is.
Good point.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's just necessarily just doing a pre-survey
Yeah.
of the existing condition.
Yeah, look at it before construction and look at it after construction.
Sure. And maybe go over that ahead of time with Mike Andrade in the field too. Pull Jerry in and pull in
Yep.
the Borrego people.
I just know that in the spring it is a wet road.
Yeah.
You got heavy trucks going up and down, they are gonna.
Well, what's scheduled at the moment, because the subdivision is still a legal subdivision,
Yeah.
and what's scheduled is adding some catch basins and some more storm drainage in there. Their argument is going to be that we don't need it now, and I see where they're coming from. Now that you're not going to have the trip generation for a subdivision going through there, but how will that be affected during, like you said, construction, the road, the equipment and all that? Make sure that it doesn't make a problem worse. Yeah, absolutely. Can't sit in this thing anymore. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Right up to the wooden fence there. So we just.
Ross is next. Sure.
Sunset Sid?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself.
If I can briefly summarize the conversation, last week, you guys, the planning board, all received Mike's review of Jason's drainage revision plan. And I know this afternoon you had Michael come out, and he called me afterwards, and they've made a lot of progress, and Mike summarized for me verbally. He'll do a report in the next few working days of what has been progressed since the last time we talked and what's remaining, and that's where we are.
Okay.
That's not related to the,
Yeah.
that's just for your information to take home.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just asked by Kurt to just give that to people. It's not related to the site plan.
All right.
Any idea when Jason can get us those revisions that we're waiting for from Michael?
I know that he was forwarded the reports and he's working on that. And, you know, it's high tide of summer here, and you know, all these guys are extremely busy.
Yeah,
so
if he can
he's-
prioritize for you, he's
Absolutely.
good at what he does, but he's spread thin.
Yep.
And we're seeing that, you know, things that clients are waiting for him aren't coming through.
Yep. Well, we'll continue to stay on about that for sure. We're you know, just very happy to be here before you guys after, I think, looking back on things, it was about 3 years ago we first came before you guys with this
Yeah.
project.
Yep.
And to have come all this way and, you know, have, you know, entered into the construction period, and we're near the tail end of that, and we're very excited to see the baby finally getting to where we want it to be after all these times. So we've been working with Mike, as you know, to come out and do his inspections so that ultimately we can reach the point where we're at today and talk to you guys about having you guys write the letter to Kurt to proceed with the conditional operating permit. So that's where we're at this evening.
I know Mike was out there today towards the end of the day and hasn't really been able to get back to us with a report of what he's reviewed. So we really have to look at that when he puts it in writing to us.
I do want to be honest that you made a lot of great progress. I mean, you're working hard. The scale of this project is immense, but you're getting there. And I know it's difficult and patience is tough. I think what the board has never done, though, is issued a temp for anything beyond when we have a landscaping component and we've hit the season late fall, early winter that it hasn't gone in yet. Then instead of giving a permanent, we'll do a temp to a point in the spring to get the landscaping in type of thing. But the board's really never released anything before everything's done. So you're making great progress, and if you can keep going at the scope you're at, in the very near future, you'll be here just saying we're done with everything. And then the board would do what it always does. But I've never seen the board for any project do a temp beyond the landscaping seasonal thing. Doing a temp instead of a permanent to guarantee that our landscaping survives the winter and or is put in if it didn't get in because it's too late with the cold type of thing.
Sure, and I totally understand that, and part of the fun of this project, as well as the challenge of this project, is that none of us have ever seen a project of this magnitude or this size in Charlton before. So there are a lot of firsts, and there are a lot of new territory, new ground. There's a lot of benefits to your board issuing that temp, not only for us, but also for you as a board. One of them is just what Alan just talked about right there, allowing the time for the growing season to make sure that those things are taken care of and they do come in. It's also, because of the size of the project and the permitting process, this project has also reached levels of appeals that we rarely see. Part of that appeal process, the state actually steps in, goes over the stormwater management systems and the drainage, and actually supersedes what the town requires or wants. So going through your board the very first time with the stormwater management systems, we brought it to a certain level. Naturally, Mike from Graves reviews that for your board and gives you guys a report and says this is what's required. Sometimes the state does not agree with that. In this situation, we're really unsure at this point in time if, being that the state is superseding the town with the superseding order of conditions, who actually has the authority on the stormwater management system and the drainage, if it is the town or if it is the state. And I don't know, I'll have to defer to you guys to answer that question. I don't know myself. And I think part of the granting the temporary also allows us, on both sides of the table, to work out these issues that, frankly, I don't have the answer for. And I'm not sure if you do.
Well, first of all, one of the biggest issues that really has to be complete is the redesign of the drainage that Jason gave it a shot and he got a lot done, but it's not done. We need that to be proper. I'm not seeing a conflict between anything state and local on drainage. Michael would have flagged it for us. If there was, then we'd be talking directly with the state. They'd be involved, and if they supersede us, we'd learn about that. I guess it just comes down to the same thing in every project. Just things have to be done. Again, I think that given the scale of the project, given that you are making excellent progress and you're getting closer and closer, it just has to be done. It's the normal routine for any planning board of managing a project. If the board gives a temp out for something that they don't do it that way before, how do we explain and justify we're doing that when everyone is required, when you get a permit, finish your project, get it inspected by Michael. Michael informs the planning board the site plan is done, and we inform Kurt of that. I just can't see any reason to do it differently. We've got some items of non-completion at this point that I think it's hard for a board to justify that they're going to do something they've never done before. The routine is get all of these field items complete, get them memorialized by engineering inspection, get Jason to complete the engineering design revisions that are different from what we approved. It's the normal way a planning board handles this responsibilities.
The only question I have is, other than stormwater, and then they do have a thing in Boston that they're waiting for, aren't they?
No, that was released on June 8th.
That was released on June 8th, and now we have permission to move ahead with that.
Oh, all right. Okay, I wasn't sure if that was resolved. I didn't know if that was still hanging out there or not.
Yeah. In general, to summarize, one, it's the plan that Jason has to
correct stormwater
finalize and get proper. Two, it's what you just mentioned. Since June 8th, you've got the green light. That area can be worked on and completed, no problem. Three is some more trees. I know you put in a lot of them, but Michael is checking on a few things to confirm location and the final number from some changes you've made. And we have to then check on all the other items to make sure that they're done. and we don't have Michael's report yet. I mean, there's a few small things here and there he mentioned verbally that, again, are required in a basin, maybe seating, he mentioned something. You know, all of those items add up, and the routine is get them done, and then we go through the sign-off from Michael. Planning board then signs off to Kurt, then Kurt issues that. So I really can't see any reason to do it differently, and that's the way we can all get beyond this, and we don't have to keep meeting, and we're done.
Well,
The project.
what I would like to comment on is that for the past several months, I know that in discussion with many different individuals, including yourself and even the building commissioner, zoning enforcement officer, we have discussed accomplishing certain goals and then having the conditional occupancy, conditional operating permit granted. Now, given the scope of the project, we feel like that was something that we'd all talked about that would help us as the applicant and also the town. This project benefits the town, and we have always worked together with the town. We feel that we come to the table constantly, putting our best foot forward, whether it's helping out with this or that in the town. We've done so for many, many years in business, and even at points in time, helping this very board complete projects that the funding was not there to complete. And that was a good relationship on both sides of the table. This is a continuation of that. The conditional does not supersede. It does not say we're not going to finish. It provides so that it gives the applicant time to finish it in a reasonable time. It also provides that nothing in the decision is not going to be completed, whether Mike or Kurt says this or that or whatever. It still has to be completed to get the line. And that's why we came before you this evening, and we feel like now all of a sudden the goal line is yet changed again.
Let me clarify.
We've had
the day before June 8th, the issuance, one of your development team had a conversation with me about, at that point, DEP still hadn't issued the thing. And it's frustrating.
Sure.
You were waiting since April and all that. So the question he posed to me, and that's what you're referring to, is the conditional question to me is, if you were done with everything and all that was left was you being held up at that location at the front of the project by DEP not issuing the superseding order, would I be willing to recommend to the planning board a conditional occupancy? And I said, yes, but with qualifications. If everything else was done, which we aren't at that point, but if everything else was done, and if DEP was still holding you up, even though we had all received notification that they approved it, but they hadn't issued it yet, so you couldn't get in there, then I would just want to check for the board's interest with DEP to make sure that if the board issued a conditional temporary recommendation for Kurt, that it wouldn't be violating something DEP that would blow back on the planning board.
Sure.
But the next day, it was issued. And so we have two things that are different from that hypothetical recommendation I would have made. One, it's been issued since June 8th, so you can get in and do the work. And two, we still have those other items remaining, which I still feel in a very short period of time you can complete.
Well, just to address those two comments, first and foremost, on that decision from DEP, just because that was granted doesn't mean we can just walk out the door and start on that project and complete that work tomorrow. One, it's an extensive project. Two, because it is dealing with the state, and a big part of why the appeal process took us over 2 years is because DEP is so short-staffed that they can't even send someone out to do an erosion control inspection, which took over a week to schedule. So once that was granted, as soon as we got it, there's a policy and procedure. You have to bring that document to the courthouse, have it recorded, then get them that information, and then try and schedule that. We just got the erosion control inspection. Now, not only do we have to complete things to their standard on that, next step, we have to wait for them to write a letter as a notice to proceed, which in itself, again, we're at their mercy, and we don't know the timetable involved. then we go into a whole nother round of inspections and everything else. As far as the little minor things, you're 100% right. 10 trees, a little mulch, naturally, those little minor things, I naturally assume could be more than covered in any condition that Alan is more than capable of writing to ensure that we would be able to complete that and not run away from mulching some plants. We're here asking for help from the board to move the ball forward, complete a goal line or checklist, and just work with us as a new business. We're literally at our wits' end with this project. We've been, getting it from a lot of different sides, and this really helps everyone around the table get completion items and get to a certain point. So,
I would feel a lot better if I had something in writing from Mike. Being that he was just out there today, I have no idea what he saw, what he said, or anything. I'm not comfortable going to a next step without that report. That's just my personal feeling. We have people to do our reviews for us and everything, and this to me would be like jumping over something that I'm not really comfortable doing. We rely on them, especially with Mike, we rely on him to do, he's our eyes and ears in the field. And unfortunately, I guess he was just there today, so we don't have anything to review here. I sympathize with you greatly, because when you're dealing with the state, which I do frequently, it's hurry up and wait. Yes, you can do it, but no, you can't because you don't have it in writing. I totally understand that. And it is very frustrating. But as being a member of this board, I just do not feel comfortable going ahead without a report from Mike.
And I can totally understand that, and that's why today, when Mike came out to do his inspection, I simply asked him to call Alan and give him an update, because I knew that you would need to at least hear from him.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt fully confident in the ability for Mike to communicate with Alan and move that information forward to you. I understand if it's not in writing, I get that all the time. So I can understand and appreciate that, and that's...
I think by getting it in writing from Mike, it doesn't lose any translation between what Mike tells Alan and then Alan tries to tell us, at least by seeing it in writing. We get the correct wording as to what he visually saw today.
Well, it would be a blanket statement, and like I said, again, deferring back to Alan and being fully confident in his ability to lock down a statement saying anything that Mike Andrade would require of the applicant to be completed. Naturally, it would be. Yeah. Is that a blanket statement that covers that thought? I mean, you've worked with Mike forever, you've worked with Alan forever, and you've worked with us forever.
You also have the advantage of us sitting here many times in the past and developing follow-up lists of what still needs to be completed, and each time Mike comes out, he checks certain things off the list. So we're all on the same page about what those things are, and it isn't a matter of him writing a long dissertation about his visitor, his inspection. It's really, and literally what he did with the printout is check things with the red pen as he went around and looked at it. So it isn't necessarily the thorough report that, it would be in another situation if we hadn't seen or talked to you in 6 months.
Well, I would pose one. I guess I would pose a question. Alan, would you be able to write a statement that would cover the concerns of the board?
No, I cannot. It's not the proper manner. There's too many loopholes and problems for conflict and future problems of getting things done. The normal procedure, and that's why planning boards have peer review legal processes with writing. And the report that Michael will prepare will summarize a lot of your progress, but will also say things aren't done. And it's just too informal and too loose to cause problems for you, problems for the board, problems for the abutters, problems for everyone. I think by the next planning board meeting, at the rate you're going, you should be done with everything.
I can definitely tell you we will not be done with everything. It will, the detention basin in the front will never be completed in time. We just, working with the state, it will just never happen. It's just not reasonable.
But they
to
gave
say
you the
that.
green light on June 8th to get in there and get working on it. I don't understand what the problem
We didn't
is.
even have our inspection until a couple days ago.
Mhm.
And
That-
can't do
that just-
anything until you.
I don't want to sound hard, but
the-
that is
the letter from the
that is the
inspection.
issue and the responsibility and the problem of any applicant, not a board sympathizing, as I know you're making an argument about why you're asking the board to sympathize and concur. But the board has a responsibility to get things done. Otherwise, like I said, we're just creating more problems, more conflict, more things hanging out, more energy of how do we pursue and complete things from all points of view. It's just not the proper legal and planning strategic procedure. People get projects done, then they get occupancies. The only time we've done the temp is over the holding back the permanent one to make sure that things survive the winter in terms of plants. I just can't recommend it. I respect where you're coming from, but I can't recommend it.
Just a quick question, Alan, just your conversation with Mike today, aside from the DEP ordinance type thing, what items are left?
What items are left, and it's just a general verbal. He could
Yes,
have more
correct.
detail or
Yes,
something.
in the writing, I would expect that.
Obviously, the big ticket one is we do not have a final drainage stormwater plan,
Okay,
which is
all
the
right,
heart of
close.
something.
Yep.
Jason needs to focus on your behalf.
Yep.
Jason needs to get that in here. Michael has to review it, and hopefully it's okay, or Michael, like any project, might say, well, I need some more revisions to recommend to you to sign off on that. He also said, on the positive side, that he's very satisfied with the earthen berm that we approved at the last board meeting, and he's very comfortable that the fastening that you did on the type of fencing you wanted modified out is sufficient. So that's great progress. Also on non-completion is the area up front where is the main way for people are coming in and out, and that work hasn't been done. I understand why it hasn't been done, but it hasn't been done. And then there's various smaller items that he mentioned verbally about seeding, mulching, that type of thing. And then there's the final trees. He may have left something out, it was just a conversation, but we need the normal parameters, and we need that work done. I don't know what else to say, so.
So actually, we need some drawings. We need information.
Well, it's a
from Jason.
That's
stormwater,
Jason's-
it's more the
Jason's plans.
stormwater management.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I can sympathize with any applicant that has to deal with Boston, the court
Yes,
system and anything
correct.
because of the waiting period, and, I mean, it's out of their control.
Mhm.
So, based upon the process that you have to go through.
Right.
And I kind of feel the same way, like you do with having to deal with the state.
Yeah,
It's a
it's-
pain in the, it just sounds like it's a pain in the neck. I'm glad I don't have to do it.
But it's a factor, while I sympathize, that it doesn't take away the board's responsibility for a procedure that's routine for completion, and then the project doesn't come in here anymore, and that's it.
So basically, we just gotta get Jason to do his calculations and stuff and get it
And-
drawn up.
Mike review them.
Yeah,
And then
and
when
along
we
with
do
the
it.
other items we've talked
Yeah.
about. I don't know what else to say.
When is your next meeting?
Next meeting
July
is
12th.
Wednesday, July 12th. That's why I feel confident that you could get this all done by then.
That's like 3
Well,
weeks.
Definitely not the entry.
like I said, there's-
The entryway.
it's-
We may not even have the letter by then.
It's impossible. We could, I could not get that done in that.
What about going back to that question posed to me on June 7th of everything but the entryway?
Well, that's,
The 10 trees that are still outstanding go with that entryway.
we'll put the 10 trees in
mulch.
another location.
Well, I don't think
That's
10
not-
trees are really a big issue
And-
at
and
this
the
time of
mulch.
deal.
They're
Is-
smaller items,
Yeah.
right.
The
It's-
mulch.
I mean, the biggest elephant in the room is that Jason's plan. And I'm not criticizing him, I'm just saying, Jason, where's your plan? On your behalf, as you are the client, and this board's responsibility.
So the entranceway really isn't a big,
I'm not sure what to say on that this evening. I would ask Michael to give us his recommendation on the importance of the entranceway, either allowing some room here or not. I need to give you his thoughts. I don't know. No.
To add on that subject matter, we have had events at the property, as everyone's aware. Egress to and from the facility has not been an issue per fire, police, So functionality-wise, it's not an issue.
And
It's
that's the
not a
question I
safety
want to
thing.
ask Michael.
So,
I want
sure.
to give this board. If that's all we're left with and there's time, you need time to do it, as the engineering consultant to the board, how's the functionality for the conditions it is right now? That's really what we're all asking, the same question. We need to pull him into that conversation.
Mhm.
So.
And I appreciate your being reasonable on the subject matter. Attainable goals that we can attain, we don't have a problem completing. For that July 12th meeting, the overall detention basin by then, like we say, that's just unreasonable for us at this point in time. We could tell you that that's not going to happen. Everything else, and hopefully we can put pressure on Jason to make that happen. We would find it reasonable if at that point in time, we said short of the detention basin with Mike's blessing on the
The
egress.
sooner he can get those
That's-
plans in for Michael to review, the better. We don't want to have a situation where he gets them to us at the last minute and Michael says he still hasn't done a lot of things on the plan that's mandatory.
No,
So,
he did submit the plans. Michael had 3 comments on the plans.
we haven't received the thing, no.
Yes.
No.
If
The
you
plans
want-
the plans that you submitted were the plans that were reviewed last week. When I spoke to Michael this afternoon, I said, we've received nothing, and he said, neither have I. Where's Jason?
No, Michael,
He commented.
we have Michael's comments from that. There were 3 comments.
That was last week, yeah, right.
That's the stormwater management, stormwater plans.
Well, let me clarify, maybe we're
Sure.
confusing each other. Just a couple steps of where we've been and the next step that has to be taken. We approved a plan 2 years ago of the stormwater drainage as part of your plan when Burton
Yes.
did it. Then Jason took over for you as Burton changed everything. And what Michael found when he started inspecting is that you had built, for logical reasons to the field, a different type of drainage plan, different locations, this and that. That had to be designed onto a plan, doing it, kind of doing it from a different 180-degree angle, and has to be reviewed. So Jason submitted that for you. Michael reviewed it, and last Thursday gave us what I emailed to you guys and the planning board. And those items in that June 14th, we need another iteration from Jason. That's what we're waiting for. And Michael needs to review
The
that.
3 comments.
Yeah, with those comments, and
Yeah.
either say they're fine or say Jason still hasn't done it. So we're saying the same
Yeah.
thing, but from a different angle. Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
So he did, I was just misinterpreting that.
Yeah, that's okay.
I didn't think you thought we submitted the plan, but
No,
we
no.
had, so.
But if you need to get him to do what you need as your client, it's frustrating, he
Yep.
needs to prioritize
Not
this
quite
for
as
you.
bad as dealing with the state, but
Yeah.
almost.
All right, it's getting late. We still have a lot of stuff on our agenda for tonight.
Sure.
We will put you back on the agenda for June 12th.
Okay.
And July 12th. And if Jason gets that, if Michael gives us that letter, I'm sure Alan will review it, and before the 12th, I'm sure Alan will send you a copy of it, so that you can have it before the 12th. And, try to keep this thing going, so on the 12th we can give you a better answer.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Good evening.
Thanks. You're back in here.
You're back in
I'm
here.
back in here. So July 12th, we're back.
Yes.
I know you're on summer schedule, so you don't have a meeting on July 19th?
Right, we're on summer schedule for once a month in July and once in August. So
Okay.
the next meeting would be the first Wednesday in August, I think is the 9th?
The 9th?
Yeah, or the second
Okay.
Wednesday is the 9th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who, I don't know if we'll do any more work in Charlton, but who would I talk to about you and the Conservation Commission not meeting on the same night? I walked out of here
Mhm.
after Todd told me they had a really big schedule, they'd
Yeah.
be here for a while,
Yeah,
and it was dark.
Yeah.
And that's just really disappointing to me that I
Yeah,
can't.
you'd have to talk to Todd in Conservation about that.
Yeah, but who-
These are independent elected boards that
I
have
know,
their own
it's-
responsibilities and their own administration.
I know, it's just really frustrating.
I know that with our next schedules, he won't be meeting those nights. That's not our regular first and
No,
third.
no, so, my next meeting with him is on the 19th.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
so, you won't be hearing, the project, for
Gunter subdivision then until the first Wednesday of August.
Right,
at
but
this
we'll
point.
continue, we'll hit the ground immediately on our reviews staff-wise. We're not
Right.
gonna hold up anything. So
Right.
we'll be farther along toward the end of that. Obviously, since we don't hear him till August, he'll have revised everything from the first peer review.
Right.
You know, so he'll be the equivalent of a more advanced hearing for him than a first night type of thing.
And because of sort of the delay, is there any chance that this, that you might be able to approve the solar conditional upon getting the subdivision approved?
I think that's one particular option, because by then, by the time you're done, we'll be advanced into the subdivision. If we didn't have the subdivision submittal, we couldn't.
Right.
So that's why tonight, for instance, if you were all set, we couldn't. But I don't see why at that point, both of them have to be the same evening if we're 90% certain of what everything is on the subdivision and we know there are no loopholes and we can cross-reference.
Right.
We've done that before on
Well,
other
I'm
projects.
gonna call Roy tomorrow and I'm gonna make sure that Frank gets that stuff into you guys as soon as possible. He
Thank you.
said do that.
Thank you.
Right. All right, have a great evening. Thanks so much for all your time.
You're welcome.
Is that his easel?
No.
No, it's ours. He borrowed ours.
All right, can we get, Monica Hill one?
Sure. Two things quick on Ponican. Mike Mallett has asked for Hometown Bank's annual extension on the approval to July 7th, 2018.
As Alan read, I am formally requesting an extension of Ponican Hill subdivision approval to July 7th of 2018.
I make a motion, we approve the request.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Michael just asked me to tell you that also this afternoon, and we'll have the report, and you can accept it at the next meeting. He went out with Chris Mensch from HMMH to the Ponican noise barrier, and they did the testing today, and it worked exactly the way it was supposed to.
Sweet.
So he'll give us a write-up for the next meeting, and we can sign off on that too.
Perfect.
Thank you.
We have the reduced frontage special permit approval.
Yes, Kerry Sklars, you had approved this, and they live in another town, and sometime in the next year or two, they'll sell the house and build on the reduced frontage for the lot they own, 5.25 acres on Ramshorn. And so she's just asking for annual approval extension to next June.
Okay, I would greatly appreciate the extension of the permit for buildings on A&R land. Thank you for your time and have a great day, sincerely. She's looking for an extension to June 21st, 2018.
I'd like to make a motion to approve that reduced frontage lot.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll go back to the A&Rs. Rick Para submitted this for himself on Para Family Trust Land on Partridge Hill Road. Everyone's doing estate planning on these tonight. This is partly in Charlton, partly in Dudley, so he'll bring this to the Dudley Planning Board for the Dudley side. But all he's doing, if I can find the purpose clause, purpose of the plan is divided into the two lots. So right now, Lot 1 and Lot 2 are all one big piece on Partridge Hill. He's carving out Lot 2, which will be 2 acres with plenty of frontage. He said he's not doing anything immediately, but it makes it buildable and he could possibly sell it or develop it. And the remaining land that also goes a little into Dudley, zigzags and back up, will be Lot 1, which is remaining of about 15 acres.
So that's Partridge Hill here,
Yes.
and he's putting 2 lots?
Yes, he's splitting it into 2. Right now, it's all one lot combined.
One.
So he'll break out, the main goal is to create that lot 2, and in the future, he said no immediate plans, but in the future, he could either build a house, sell it to somebody to build a house, that type of thing.
And why does he need Dudley's approval?
Because the way the lot line goes is it drops down for a bit into Dudley and then comes back up. So for that little chunk, Dudley's signing after you sign.
How does he retain access to the back property?
Yeah.
He retains it through that frontage right there. Yeah.
And his lot 2 is lot 1.
Yeah, so
So this
that's the frontage.
allows it to go back?
Yep, yep, and it's all one lot. It just happens to have a bit of the lot over in Dudley. But yes,
How many acres are in the back now? Or will be?
15.7 total. So right now, it's all one big 17.7 parcel, 18 acres roughly. He'll break off 2 into lot 2, and the rest will stay in one big lot.
This is just what, a car road now?
Yeah, it's just a cart road. I insisted he put the term driveway on because he did run a concept by me first that he put the language formally and still considered a right-of-way road. And I said, it doesn't work that way. I said, it's not on the official map. And I said, if you have old deeds pre-existing World War I, that language cannot be on it, because when you sign an A&R, you're also blessing the legality of any rights-of-way. So he took that language off.
So this basically will be a driveway.
Yeah, it's a cart path, and you can call it an existing driveway right now. But otherwise, someone could come along years later and say, in 2017, the planning board signed something, this A&R, and it says, considered now and formally considered a roadway right-of-way, and they could try to A&R off of that. They can't do that now, we're taking that language off.
Do we see the language that says it's a driveway?
He took it back. He took back the one I was concerned with that he showed me and just put this one, which is fine. People write existing driveway on cart paths across these properties, and that's not a problem for us.
Make a motion, we approve the A&R.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm not sure if we are. You can show me how to turn it off. I can just turn it off. Oh. When you signed this one, I've got a folded up paper one to sign. It just wasn't rolled up.
This is for Ayana Road? No, Daniel Road?
Yeah, yeah. Gina McLaughlin talked to me and she was putting it together, just asking questions. She grew up in Charlton but lives in upstate New York, and again, she's doing this for family estate planning. Everyone's estate planning tonight. But she will put one lot on the market, lot number 2, in the near future, but it's coming out of their consideration. It's just splitting their property on Daniels Road that's currently about 9.5 acres, one parcel, into 2. And she's interested in possibly selling or talking to a realtor about how to develop lot 2, which will be 2.87 acres. There's a nice house lot with 175 feet of frontage. The remaining lot, they're not planning on doing anything in the near future. I assume she'll come back in the future and A&R it as time goes by. It's 6.17 with several hundred feet of frontage. And where on Daniels Road is in that locus? It's on the west side, kind of down across from Pine Lane and East Lane.
Down by Dwight.
Is this presently a lot now or something?
Yeah, that's somebody else. Now or formerly Carpenter. Do you know who that is or was? Yeah, that would be right across from the intersection of Daniels and East Lane.
So this house lot will have that as road frontage?
Yes, and this one will have from there to there, which is almost 1,000 feet.
Okay.
But she'll probably come back someday and do some more, probably 2, 4, 6 acres plus. 2, 2, 2.
It's wide enough for...
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, it's 175 feet width, no problem. And she can do, someone could do a house with routine side yard setbacks, no problem.
Do you have a motion to accept the A&R as shown?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Normally that pink chair helps me. I had to leave. That pink chair just nailed me.
Torques you up.
I'm okay right now, but boy.
That's easy when it's folded.
You could fold the other way if you'd like in the future. All 4 of them are family estate planning tonight. Interesting.
Everybody getting to a certain age?
I think so. Well, Dr. Robinson's retired, isn't she?
Yeah,
I
she's
was
been
gonna
retired
ask
for a
you.
while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dad used to go there.
Really?
Yeah, she's in Auburn.
Thank you.
I'm gonna see what
It is.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'll just go through them tomorrow.
Alright. Do you have anything with the village district? or do
Very
you wanna just-
quickly, just good news. I'm having a meeting tomorrow afternoon here with Dan Deniska from CMRPC. We have the green light from his boss to start working on the sidewalks, the complete street. He finished 3 other communities last week, so we're now up front. So I'll sit down with him tomorrow, and for our next agenda, whatever happens between tomorrow and the next meeting in 3 weeks, we'll have something for the board. And the goal, again, is by fall to have a spreadsheet with a little narrative that's your master plan, but it'll come before you. We'll invite the EDC in that night in draft form, and you'll go over all the sidewalk locations in the village district. The state Complete Streets program requires that in this phase 2, they're funding us, you know, to pay CMRPC. Remember, we did that little grant application. So CMRPC will bill us, and the state will give us the money to pay them for the next several months' work. And you'll finalize a minimum of 15 locations throughout the village district for either new sidewalks or upgrading existing. We can do more than 15, and I'm sure we can come up with more than 15, but you'll go with what order you think makes sense and that type of thing. So we would complete that with him by, the contract says December, but I think we can get done by October. And then we can just roll right into applying for actual construction money for the spring, for the first segments you want to do. So I'm glad we're finally out of the gate tomorrow and have something, hopefully some further good information for your next meeting. The second item, the BXJ, I've been talking to both the reporter who's putting together the Charlton Route 20 corridor available opportunity article and the editor on the listings of properties. A couple people, for their own reasons, just don't want to be included in the listing at this point, which is fine. People can change their mind. We can always add more. The editor also told me that even in the next year or two, they're going to keep online, separate from the print article, they're going to keep the listing online, kind of a permanent inventory with our own file section that you can click on their webpage, so we can add others in the future too. I've got a list, and the folks who have given us information, and they've been wonderful, I think we have at least 9, maybe 10. It's all, they wanted the larger pieces, so really small ones aren't on it. If someone's got a few acres, they didn't really want to put it on. And it's everything you're aware of. They asked for 2 to be profiled higher, and the 2 are Frank Tiberi's property and also the Kozowski property. Ken is very excited about it and gave me the information yesterday to final, but we can also rotate that out. It's just for the original article and the first listing. Over time, you can rotate the others in for the top 2 profile ones, and then they'll put them back on the list. Yeah, it's rotated. It's more for visual graphic effect. It's not ranking them or anything like that. And
just want first sites on, first
yes.
lots on your site. Okay.
Yep, exactly. So hopefully by your next meeting, it will be out, both in print and they're supposed to get to me in the next couple of days some drafts to look at to make sure that facts are correct. And then early July, the July-August issue comes out in print and gets posted on their webpage. As soon as I get the news, I'll email everybody, let you know. 3 quick items under growth management, then my list. I have a request from Brendan Gove. Jason Du Bois came to me last week. He spoke to me and Brendan, and he's in a butter on the North Sturbridge Road.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on right here. I'm gonna get it right. The North Sturbridge Road solar, and he had requested, and you would have included in the site plan, a row of arborvitae. And now that they're out in the field clearing, he realizes before they clear that area, it would be better to leave it the way it is and not even put in arborvitae, the natural. So he asked the landscaper to not clear yet before tonight, and asked if you would approve, and Brendan wrote that confirming it's certainly fine by him, if you would, as a field adjustment, not put in the arborvitae and go with the natural buffer, that now he visualizes everything and would prefer it. And that's Brendan in writing. My explanation to Brendan on what Jason requested, and Brendan saying that subject to the planning board agreeing to it, he's fine with it.
Make a motion, we approve the field change.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Second to the three growth management, as you know, you wanted Cleve Blair for Dresser Hills to convey the open space by the fall, and also we wanted to give him a little push to finish the subdivision, roadway, infrastructure, all that. He jumped right on it. So, just wanted to read to you briefly. I didn't make copies. Bear with me for 1 second. He sent an email last week directly to the Greater Worcester Land Trust and copied me, telling Colin Novick, the planning board asked for a conveyance by the fall, but frankly, can we convey it in the next month? So Colin Novick wrote back with a list of things, and I just wanted to describe it briefly because it shows the time-consuming stuff that goes into everything. He needs to give them a deed, and he needs his lawyer to draft it up, and it has to go to George Dresser, who's the lawyer in Worcester for the Land Trust. He's got to put bounds in, so they had a meeting and they walked and they marked where the bounds would go, and he needs a sign and fencing that was agreed to as part of the subdivision. So he feels pretty confident that in the next month or so he can complete all that, and then I'll report to you as soon as there's actual conveyance, and that'll be done. He's also laying out over the next month, finishing the subdivision. The main thing, and he wants to get it done in the next 2 weeks, is finishing that pond that was overflowing during that heavy rain, and they were using pumps 24 hours a day for about a week. He feels he can get that done in about 2 weeks, connect the cistern into that, because stormwater runoff into replenishing the cistern, doing some road work, some curbing work, some sidewalk work, and we're really down to, dovetailing beautifully for the October town meeting for a street acceptance, getting an as-built going in August. So that'll keep coming before you over the next few months. Third and finally, another subdivision, Hammond Woods, and you've expressed to me your concern, and what I've done is I've set up a meeting next Tuesday morning for myself, Tim Reardon, the developer, and Mike Andre to walk it. I want to be frank, I'm concerned. While we had a friendly professional conversation, I didn't feel there was much cooperation in the conversation from Tim on moving forward. He commented to me that he feels that he can't get anybody to do the work right now and I don't see it that way at all, and I expressed that, so that's why I want the meeting. I said I want to go through everything. I want Michael to come up with what's remaining, what's been done, and I think we can at that meeting set up a fair schedule for summertime, fall wrapping up. You're at a point, and I'll pass around the map that the building department put together just to show you. Again, bear with me, files tonight, lots of projects. Dresser Hill, Hammond Woods. The lots in blue, the building department said, are the ones that are either have a house that's heading for occupancy or is occupied. There's only about 5 lots left that haven't received the building permit. Also, I'll give you a copy of the letter that was in your mail packet at one meeting in April, at the beginning of the meeting, from the fire chief, that as of April 11th, because of no progress being made on the mandatory required cistern, the fire department and the building department at that point shut down any further occupancies of building permits. I spoke to the chief the other day. He said, I have not heard a thing on this. And you combine that with my conversation, and I have a feeling that I'm going to suggest at next Tuesday's meeting that he come in on the July 12th agenda to touch base directly with the board on why can't we have a schedule? Why can't we routinely schedule over the summer finishing the subdivision? It's routine work, sidewalks, curbing, the usual stuff. We are holding a tripartite performance guarantee on that work in the amount of $645,000 from Southbridge Savings Bank. And so if you look at the spreadsheet, I'll pass it around, it's a 2-page spreadsheet. A lot of that work has been done, but a lot of it isn't done, and it's not common to be this late in the subdivision and not having it done and not having the developer want to get it done out of the way. This was an older subdivision from way back that we didn't have earlier deadlines that we have on more recent ones to get things going and such. But I know the fire department has been very concerned. They were very flexible and gave him through the winter when he felt he wanted to at least wait till the spring, and nothing has happened on that.
Now, would it be beneficial to contact bank at all?
I think it couldn't hurt for me to contact Ron Cooper, the
Yeah.
vice president, as we've done previously. This is nothing new
absolutely, yeah.
on subdivisions. We've done this on a handful of others, that bank and other banks, and let them know the status, and hopefully they can be very helpful, and banks have been helpful of working with all parties. They hold that guarantee, and you have the legal right to draw down that if you feel there's not getting done.
And you have a meeting with him Tuesday, right?
Yes.
Do you think that after Tuesday's meeting, if that one doesn't get a good response, that we should contact the bank
I'd say we'll have him contact them.
ahead of time? Okay.
Just to give him a heads up.
I mean, I can call the bank tomorrow just to give them, fill them in on where we are, and hopefully keeping everything going positive.
So is that the bond that's remaining, 600,000?
Yes,
Okay.
645,000, and it's a performance, a tripartite.
Tripartite, yeah.
And the tripartites are, from the financing of the project, the bank is holding that funding.
Okay.
And if the planning board reaches a point of non-cooperation, you can notify the bank that if the bank can help out, great, otherwise you need to vote to legally secure that funding. And the way it works in Massachusetts is under $100,000 worth of work, you would just, and we've done this before, we've had 20, 30, 13,000 in the past, you would have Graves Engineering sub it out to a contractor to finish it. To expend over 100, if there's over 100 of work left, you would line it up, and you'd need the fall town meeting to authorize you to green light the expenditure. It's just the way Chapter 41 works. So hopefully we won't go that far, and we're just at a point where we just need to straighten things out.
We'll let Alan contact the bank,
Correct.
and then hopefully Tuesday's meeting goes good.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'll be really quick on a few other items. Just a heads up that at your next meeting on July 12th, you'll have the second session of the Rockaway Realty Trust subdivision, and we'll either be all set or we'll be almost done, one or the other. We're just about there from the last one. And also, just checking a few things. Received from the attorney for the cell tower special permit, Daniel Klasnick, as I mentioned at the last meeting, it would be coming in. We received the tower removal bond for you to accept this evening. It's for the tower down on Potter Village Road that was recently completed. It's $56,532, and it's a routine bond from Fidelity Deposit of Maryland. They've done other bonds on other cell towers in town too. So if you don't have to sign anything, it's just the board voting to accept it, and I can notify them that that's the only thing left from Kurt issuing the certificate of operation.
And that amount was, that was agreed to from Graves as an
Yes,
adequate amount?
yeah, we let the applicant propose the amount, and then we run it by Graves.
Okay.
And he said, yep, no problem.
Make a motion, we accept the bond
Second.
That amount.
Yep.
Thank you.
as presented.
Thanks.
Do I have a second?
Yes, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We will be getting in the next day or two, someone will be delivering from Nexamp the actual cash checks for the two landscaping performance guarantees you approved at the last meeting. So if they come in tomorrow, Monday or Tuesday, we'll have the treasurer just set up the accounts since you already voted on it at the last meeting. So they'll be good on that. Here's Michael's latest spreadsheet, as you know, from time to time, updating of just projects that he field manages for you. We'll probably have on your agenda the next meeting briefly under growth management. Jason Du Bois is finishing up for Doug Monson's commercial self-storage proposal across from CVS. When you approved the site plan, there were a couple of items of design revision at the request of the fire department for radius turn around the storage buildings. So he's working on that. That should come in time for you to spend a few minutes at your next meeting, that after the fire department is okay with the radius turn, to just approve it as a field adjustment and finishing from that condition of your approval. And he wants to go for building permitting and going on building lot. So that's there. And I just found in my pile the one other thing I wanted to hand out to show you again what's involved in a subdivision open space conveyance. This is that email back. Here's the email on the back
page 3 from Cleve Blair asking to the Greater Worcester Land Trust to finish, and here's Colin's response of what they need to do, which I went over with Cleve, and he said no problem. But it just shows you that it's not just signing a deed, it's, you know, finishing up site work, legal documents, a fence, you know, signage, that type of thing. So, and let me just double check my list. Just to let you know, I'm taking 1 week of summer vacation the week of July 24th. I've tried to balance it as far as possible, separate from the July 12th meeting and the August 9th, kind of in the middle of that, so it's not crunching against one of those meetings. And just double checking, you did the cell tower. The last item, just to let you know, we're almost at the end of the fiscal year, and even though we have another week or two, week and a half to go, as of now for the fiscal year, for the fees that you take in, the proportion that you turn over to the town and to the general fund has gone over $10,000. We're at $10,067.50, and that's pretty healthy. I think we hit 12,000 a couple of years ago, but this is the second highest at this point. I'll give you a final figure once we end the fiscal year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my items.
Any questions from the regular board members tonight? No. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.